Now it's time for today's perspective. And once again, the world is looking away. Now that is the message from one of the world's leading NGOs, the Norwegian Refugee Council, as they want to warn of the oncoming latest catastrophe in Sudan. Now the message after the organisation's Secretary General visited the South Kordofan region last week. The region, we're now at the epicentre of the war in Sudan. The people living there facing intensifying fighting and a near total blockage of any kind of humanitarian supplies, and that already after a year of starvation and bombardment. Joining us now is Sudan Advocacy Manager for the Norwegian Refugee Council, Mathilde Vu. Thanks very much for being with us on the programme. We spoke a while ago about the situation in Sudan, but tell us if the situation can possibly have got any worse.
It has. It's been more than 1,000 days of conflict, of bombardment, of killing of civilians, of hitting civilian infrastructures, hospitals, schools, and 1,000 days of more of starvation. You just explained right now, for example, in the Kordofan, which is really now the epicenter of the war, you have entire cities like Kadugli and Dilinj that have been starved for over a year. And what I mean by starving is that people are in famine condition. They can barely survive on one meal a day. Some of them have survived on boiled leaves, and they had no choice but to leave, and to live through very terrible, dangerous journeys, and then end up in the middle of the bush in mountains where they are barely getting assistance. So yes, it is sadly getting worse and worse.
And of course, children and the elderly are perhaps amongst those most affected by this?
Absolutely. We've had horrible stories of mothers having to carry the children and their elderly parents through 20-day journey on foot, on donkey, and on very crowded trucks. Some of them explaining to us that they left with a little bit of food that obviously they ran out throughout the journey. They had to sell the clothes that they had in order to get just a little bit to survive. And then again, they arrive in places that are displacement camps that are vastly neglected, they're underserved, where we are all struggling to get assistance to, and really the ones who step up the most are the host communities, the local responders who try to share their meals for the people who arrive.
And as you say, this is after 3 years already of fighting in the country, isn't it? I mean, it's something that has been building and building, getting worse and worse and worse every month.
It has. I mean, one would wonder, there's been at least 3 episodes of mass atrocity since the beginning of the war. And what I mean by mass atrocity, I mean mass slaughter and targeting of civilians and deliberate targeting. There's been also 2 officialization of famine, and basically Sudan being branded as the country where the most people are getting hungry and dying of hunger. And how many more suffering does the world need in order to pay attention to this? And by paying attention, I mean, putting enough money into the humanitarian response, that's one, but also and especially put political pressure on the warring parties and on the backers to make sure that, the basics are finally, upheld. Protection of civilians, getting people food, getting access to those people for aid.
Some of those images we're seeing, including the one we're just seeing there now, the Secretary General, your Secretary General visiting the region. I mean, why did he go there? What help might he and your organisation be able to offer?
He goes there because, and every single director of organization try and goes to Sudan because we need so much attention. I mean, Sudan is not in the priority list of the world leaders. It's not making into the international discussions, despite being one of the largest humanitarian crises in the world, and a crisis that is spanning from the Red Sea to the Sahel, and that is also increasing. What we try and offer is nearly not enough to what is needed. We are struggling to get life-saving assistance to those people in need. We have to choose every day between, are we going to help those people who just arrived or the people who arrived 2 months ago or 3 months ago, just simply because there is not enough resources. So this is really we're trying to shake the international community and to push them to be present for history, really.
What realistically can the international community actually do then?
There's a few things that can be done. One is unlocking funding. This is something that the international community needs to face. I mean, since 2025, we've seen a huge drop of funding in Sudan. Like last year, we ended up with 70% of the funding needed being missing. This is huge. So this is the first thing, like make the international solidarity work. Because right now, the only solidarity that really exists in Sudan is the one of the poorest people, these host communities, local responders who are like voluntarily sharing the little that they have in order to help. So funding is one. And again, like making Sudan a priority in the different conversation with world leaders, taking again the measure of history and putting the right pressure behind, those statements that we see here and there. We need actions.
But if you have that funding potentially to buy humanitarian aid, presumably you've got to get it in there as well. And I would have thought the only way of doing that would be to send international troops in or something, which could make the situation worse, no?
Not really, and actually not at all. We don't need, as humanitarian, we are unarmed, we are civilians. We are doctors, teachers, etc., and we don't need weapons in order to work. And right now, my teams on the ground in the middle of Darfur, in the middle of Kordofan, are continuing to give assistance, life-saving assistance, to the people who need the most. I think what is needed is the respect of international norms. There is rules in war, and the first rule is not to hit civilians and to let humanitarian assistance, flow to the people in need. And this doesn't require an international troops on the ground. It requires the warring parties and the backers to finally respect what we're all supposed to abide for, which is international humanitarian law.
And why do you think the international community isn't getting that message? I mean, if they understood that you believe you could use the aid and get it to the people that need it.
It's more that I believe is that we are already doing it. We're just not doing it to the level that is needed in order to absolutely save lives. Right now, we're in many places we're delaying death, but I cannot tell you how many volunteers, how many Sudanese aid workers, international aid workers all across Sudan are doing this already. So it's about seeing what is happening and understanding that we could do way more if the actual pressure was being put again on the warring parties and the leaders. And for that, again, it means that you need to have attention, you need to have public people like journalists, civilians, etc., pushing the elected members to say, well, what is happening in Sudan is unacceptable. It is breaching every principles that we fight for, and you need to take action on it. And this is right now not happening enough.
Good to get your views on the programme. Mathilde Vu, thanks very much for joining us today on the programme. Sudan Advocacy Manager for the Norwegian Refugee Council. Thanks very much once again for joining us here on France 24.